Love is giving up on what you want to find the very thing that you need. Love is easier said than done, but worth your everything. Yeah. Love is listening without a reply, response or trying to solve your problem. Love is hearing your pain and feeling your pain till your pain becomes ours. I will be still. I will be still. Love is more than a song you sing when your heart is full of hallelujah. Love is showing a path to a dark night of the soul, does something to you. Love is who I am when no one's around and still do the best that I can. Love is trusting that I am enough to become what love demands. I will be still. I will be still. I will be still. And remember that I ain't in control. Give me peace surpassing all that I know. I will be still. You are safe here and now, and you belong here and now, and you are loved here and now, and I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna be right by your side. I will be still. I will be still. I will be still. And remember that I ain't in control. Give me peace surpassing all that I know. 'Cause I will be still. Oh, and I will be still. And I will be still. I surrender all of my mind, body, heart, and all of my soul. I will be still. You will be still. We will be.
Thank you so much for being here. It really is, Isaiah, it really is an honor to be here with you for this purpose, to have this conversation. I'm excited to see where it'll go and the gift of this song, Be Still, and what it's meant to me, what it's meant to our Revelation Breathwork community, and what it's meant to 2.77 million streams on Spotify. So clearly it's striking a chord with so many. So I just want to thank you for being here and being present with your time and your energy.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out and the invitation to friendship and to conversation. That I think, for me, anytime you get to talk about something that you created, I think you yourself uh, uh, have a deeper appreciation for it, and you have new ways that this song continues to teach you. So yeah, thank you for that gift.
Yeah, let's dive in to Be Still. And I'm curious what was going on in your life. What inspired you to write Be Still? What was going on in your world where that was born and birthed through you?
Yeah, I wrote this song in 2000 and I believe 18, maybe 2017. But ultimately, it was definitely coming from a place of just finding myself reacting, reacting online, reacting in my relationships, reacting in spaces that I, I, I usually have to I have to lead in and maintain a level of groundedness. I found myself unraveling. Growing up in a faith community, growing up in the church, this was probably the time I also felt like the most division I've ever experienced as well too. Not just with folks that you typically can say those are those people over there, whether it's politically or faith wise. I found myself really struggling with my own family, members of my own faith community, and there's so many conversations that were being had where I found myself angry, and I found myself frustrated. I found myself anxious, and I started going to therapy because it was affecting my the relationship I was in at that time. And again, this is during the Black Lives Matter movement, and just found a lot of people around me as well, being so quick to react rather than responding. So when I started going to therapy, my therapist started just, giving me some practices of how to self-regulate, how to literally be still, and some of that was breathing exercise, learning how to do certain things that can bring me back to the present. There's this drill that he had me do, and like instantly I was like, oh, what else do you got? It was just drill. He was like, first, what are five things, let's sit, let's take a few deep breaths. What are five things that you see? I was able to, okay, I can see the wall, I can see the computer screens. What are four things that you hear? What are three things that you can feel physically with your body? What are two things that you can appreciate about someone else? And lastly, what's something you can appreciate about yourself? Instantly, like a pill, I found myself no longer in this echo chamber of whatever it is that was taking away my peace. And you hear people all the time say, "Be present, be present, be present," and no one ever tells you how to do that when it feels like the world is on fire. And in a moment, through really identifying where you are right here and now, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And also, what's something positive? What's something you appreciate about others? What's something you appreciate about yourself? Like just that 5-step drill did something that I've never ever been able to do before. I've been a pastor's kid my whole life and have had a tendency of over spiritualizing everything. If something's bad, maybe it's because God is mad. If something is good, maybe it's because of something I'm doing right. And I found that practice to be identifying so much more than spirituality, but really like giving my feelings permission to to exist, and really being able to have like a practical 5-step drill of any time I'm feeling I have to do this times with my partner, my wife Ellie. I have to do this working with human beings, congregants at these different faith spaces that I work in. There's so much that happens when we just simply misunderstand one another and what's actually happening. And if we're not grounded, if we're not present, we can be really quick to jump to conclusions. So just that experience immediately, was like, okay, tell me more. And we started just doing this work of how to self-regulate. And one of the things that he said that was so powerful that got me writing this song is he said, hey, when someone is triggered, because I was just processing people around me and how I can tend to their traumas or their triggers. He said, something that's been helpful is identifying that maybe there's a possibility in the moment when people are triggered. When I'm triggered, I I need to be reminded that I'm safe. I need to be reminded that I'm safe right now, even though what I'm triggered by could have been something that happened 30 years ago, but that right now, as I'm feeling this, I'm actually safe right now. I'm not where I was. Just a reminder that I'm loved right now. As simple as that sounds, sometimes like we just need that reminder, like, hey, you're loved right now. The reminder that you belong. You actually, with all that you're feeling, all that you're like, you actually belong to me, and you belong to this moment right now. You belong to the feelings that you have right now. They are your feelings, and I affirm them, and I recognize them, and I see you. And then lastly, like I realized like a self-abandonment, or abandonment, is something that a lot of folks don't even know that they struggle with. Abandonment issues. Growing up, I never heard abandonment issues, even the word abandonment, like when I was in my teens or, my 20s. There's so many terms that are coming out that I'm like, man, I don't ever remember talking about that as a child, abandonment issues, but just the ability to remind someone like, hey, I'm not going anywhere, which has been something that I've had to really work on communicating, whenever I, need a breather, like how to really be able to say, hey, I'm taking a walk, but I'll be back. Like the ability to let anyone know who might struggle with abandonment issues or just abandonment period, like, hey, I'll be back. I'm not my best self right now, so I need to go for a walk, and then I can come back, and then I can hear you better. So all these tools are tools that I was just like, man, how do I remember this? And throughout my life, my form of journaling has been through songwriting, and that's where I wrote that. And then a simple prompt I go to, which I think everyone should do. The writing prompt is what is love? Love is, love is, love is. I think love is so simple, and at the same time is yeah is too deep for us to ever write just one song about. But in that season where I was feeling like there was so much misunderstanding, and I found myself that love is actually a few things that maybe scripture, the Bible doesn't explicitly say, but how can I say it in a way that someone in 2025 might be able to be like, yeah, that feels like love. It maybe it's not the traditional love is patient, love is kind, but yeah, I get down with, love is hearing and feeling your pain till your pain is ours. Like empathy, like scripture doesn't may not say, bar for bar, this is how you practice that, but just the ability, there's other ways that it says it. We carry each other's burdens. How do we do that? First of all, we listen, and then we even dare to feel whatever pain that the other person is feeling, and then we are then ready to actually find a solution together or heal together once we're hurting together too. I just love the definition or the way that someone talked about compassion when I was young. Compassion is hurting together. And sometimes we think it's just feeling bad for someone or it's providing healing, but actually, first and foremost, it's the ability to hold space to hurt alongside someone else, so that the healing can be collective as well too. So that's where that song came from, and I was so grateful to be able to, work with some of my favorite musicians who are dear friends as well too. I played guitar and drums on that track, but I had my boy Jared come and play bass. And then I had my boy Ian Santillano, who I continue to collaborate today. I mean, I heard this cat playing at a club in San Jose, and immediately I was like, how does a Filipino kid like rip like John Mayer? It was just so wild to me. And I ended up having him play on my live album, and then I asked him if he would consider coming into the studio and have this conversation with me. So if you listen to even the way that he expresses on his guitar, he's not just like an accompanist on this. Like we're having a dialogue, and even the way that we edited that song, there's a back and forth that I have with the guitar. But he plays a really vital role in really being able to communicate this spirit of being still, and it's not just not moving, it's more of it's a vibe of peace. It's fully present, and it's in this. I don't know. When I was writing the song, another mind was kind of influencing this, but as a Christian, I follow the way of Jesus, and I draw from a lot of songs that I listened to growing up, and there's a song that goes, "Jesus is my Savior, I shall not be moved. Glory, hallelujah, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved." Like that song was constantly like informing. I had the imagery of like a rushing, roaring rapid, and then the ability just to like not move, not move, deeply rooted. And so there's so many things that happened during the time I was writing the song, but those were some of the main influences that helped me pen that song and then invite other people to collab with me.
I just really want to acknowledge you for having the courage to seek out support when you're struggling. That's really what I'm hearing. And you said you went to therapy. I don't know if you had done therapy before that, but you recognize that you were having some challenges in your relationships and you wanted to get a deeper understanding of yourself and what was maybe under those and maybe skills and tools. And you did that. And out of that support, which I think a lot of men, at least culturally, probably don't do. Maybe it's more and more prominent. It's definitely more prominent in California than it is maybe in other parts of the country. As far as the journal process, that's one of the ways that you process. Was that just something you sat down for your own benefit? It's not like, hey, I'm going to write a song. It was like, hey, I'm going to journal. I'm going to write Love Is and just see what comes out. And then it turned into a song? Or at what point were you like, ooh, there's something here?
There's a mantra that I was taught. It's this very very simple phrase: "Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God." It comes from the scriptures, and so I was like, man, okay, that seems very very. It's like a meditation. How can I take this one line, make it mine, and then share it? How can I create something that I actually, every time I sing this song, I'm literally inviting myself to like slow down. So that's it. I grabbed my guitar, I will be still. And you have to say that a few times. Okay, I can't just say that one time. I will sing that a few times and remember that I ain't in control. Give me peace that surpasses all that I know. Like this is this is what I believe as a human being. Like there's such a thing that exists, a peace that surpasses understanding. And I feel like as an American here in Cali, I'm surrounded with people who are incredibly intelligent and and oftentimes we can really depend on our intellect to get us out of a jam or to make sense of chaos. And I'm learning about this piece that's like it's actually not about figuring it out. It's about trusting that there's something greater than we can ever comprehend at work right now. That's been here, that is here, that will continue to be here. And so I just, for me, it's like these are supernatural tools that I think we've been given since the beginning of time. How do we access them today? How do we access them in a form of a tune that, like this is, the even the musical stylings of this song, comes from my influences. Like I started playing guitar when Mayer came out with his first album, and so being able to like speak to the time using the sound of the time was a challenge that I was like, this is how I want to create. I know that my sound will change in 10 years, but right now this is what helps me be still. And so I think ultimately, for me, this response is something that is constantly evolving.
When you said that your guitarist has kind of that Mayer flavor, that is what it evoked in me when I first, heard that riff and just like, ooh, it's so just cuts right to the soul, and it is a conversation that you're having, and so just want to acknowledge that it's so good. And I'm curious, you mentioned that you're a preacher's son and the church, and it sounds like you're still active in the church in some way. Maybe you can share, and that's a big foundation of how you live your life. And it sounds like this experience that you had at that time with other people and the triggers and whatever was triggering you and tough conversations, or maybe they were conversations that weren't happening, but it was more just receiving information and then being affected by it. It sounds like your uh, background and experience in the church influenced that. And it also sounds like it was a way that God, life, spirit kind of supported you. So it wasn't directly related to the church. It was through your music. It was through the therapist. It was like all these different ways that was bringing this awareness, this healing, this knowing to you. And I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how your roots in the church have impacted your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I've got a, you know, man, I always have a tough time labeling my relationship with the church. I'll say that I'm still here because I'm still following the way of Jesus because I'm convinced. I'm convinced that there is no other way that I found that both comforts, encourages, and challenges me. Just the concept of enemy love is something that continues to convince me, like, yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna follow anyone, I love the way that Jesus loved. I love the people he associated with. I love the way he challenged the powers at the time. I love the way that he expressed anger. I love the way that he expressed compassion. But you know, over the years, I realized that actually, as I've really started to be more self-aware, Jesus would have time for a guy like me. Jesus would have time for a guy like me and many others who've never felt like they belonged or they fit in. And so I'm here because I'm convinced of the way of Jesus, and I'm also here because I feel like there's a lot of damage that the church has done in in I don't even know if systematizing is even the right word, but the way that the church has organized something that I'm not entirely sure can be organized has yeah, just caused so much hurt and so much division. And I'm here because I really feel like there's there's people who are doing it really well and inspire me, and then there's people who I'm like, hey, I think you're missing it, and so I want to be a part of the truth telling, to saying, hey, I don't necessarily think that that's the way of Jesus, but trying as best as I can with the spirit of inclusivity and diversity to share what I believe is good news for everyone. And so much of my songs, really come from that place. Sometimes, I think about a conversation that I had with my mom when I first released my first record. My mom was like, "Is your music Christian? Is it gospel, or is it worldly, or is it secular?" And I said, "Mom, who decides that? who, even just the fact that there's like a Christian genre, like who's the person that decided that? Can we just have that conversation? Like if you were to ask me what my genre is, I would try to place my genre in if there's a genre of honest authenticity, because I really think, I had the same conversation, on a radio station in Tonga, the island that I'm from, and they were asking the same thing, and I was like, if I made ice cream, is that Christian ice cream? If I made at this table, does this make it a Christian table? Like, let's just process that a little bit. And I learned years ago that where we find truth is where we find God. And so I enjoy, as an artist, as a creative, how do I make these deep, I believe, theological and maybe even philosophical truths accessible to someone, to anyone, not just to someone, to anyone, who may not have grown up with my faith tradition. So, yes, I'll say, everything that I do, if you're listening, if you're actually listening, is influenced by my spirituality, is it influenced by my culture, it's influenced by my heartbreak and also by my joys. Life influences my songs. It's not just my Christian influences. It's also, the influences that come from my friends who are not Christian. And so I just think, part of my focus as a creative is accessibility, inclusivity, diversity. Growing up in the Bay Area, I didn't just grow up with one genre. It was a fusion of things. And you'll hear that with all my songs. There's funk, hip hop, reggae, soul, R&B, gospel. Grew up like having a deep, deep love for Rage Against the Machine. You'll hear some of that, and some of there's the energy and spirit that comes from so many influences that I hold, and I honor and I nod to. We are all a product of our influences, and so I think my faith, will continue to be the most important thing that I talk about. But how I talk about is crucial to me. And so again, when you're hearing "I will be still," I all the things that I mentioned in that song actually come from my faith, but it's also coming from how I didn't practice my faith. There are a lot of things I said in that song, that's coming from a place of, hey, love is, and I want to do that, but I haven't quite figured it out yet. So all those, bars in that song, don't just come from, here's what I think love is, here's also what I'm inspiring, here's what I'm challenging myself to do as well. And it doesn't just come from the Bible, it comes from School of Hard Knocks of getting it wrong, and still trying to figure it out.
I think in the world of the church, and I'm not really involved in the world of the church. I grew up in it. I would say I'm more on the spiritual side of things. I'm very much a student of the way of Jesus the Christ, for sure. It's what I've devoted my life to. Sounds like you're not just a member of the church, but you have a position of leadership, or at least your family did. And so it's so honest to be like, yes, I may teach these things, I may be a leader in this regard, and I'm still human. I still am learning and growing and struggling. And I think that's refreshing because so many experts or leaders, they try and, I think it does a disservice. I think they're well intentioned, but they're trying to set the example without acknowledging the side of being human and the struggles and the temptations and the mistakes. But that's how we learn and grow. So I just want to acknowledge that from you, and maybe use that as a segue into exploring some of the I'd love to go almost line by line on some of these lyrics and just hear, because obviously the lyrics came from somewhere. They came from an experience, they came from a wisdom, a mistake, or whatever. And if we can get into that, if you're up for it, I think it'd be that's what I'd love to do that.
I'm so honored. I mean, I've never had anyone do this with me, and so this sounds like a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yeah, oh my gosh. The honor is mine, and I think everyone is going to be listening. So, I mean, let's just start with the opening one, which is "Love is giving up on what you want to find the very thing that you need.
Man, I will say that was the line that started the song. I mean, I don't love working out. I don't love kale and eating vegetables. But, part of my health journey holistically, has been really um, being able to look at what I want and what I need. And I just started just, I said this around the same time I wrote the song. It's like, man, what if I wanted what I need? You know, there's this fascinating verse that is very popular, to Christians. The Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. I never really understood that. But over the years, I started to actually look at it and just, the concept of not wanting for anything, I think is really fascinating. And, I think when you really look at that passage, it's really being able to find all that you need with God. And the truth is, like, I know people who find joy in simpler things, who are content. You hear about this other passage, I have found the secret of being content. And it's the ability to actually realize that we actually have more of what we need than we might realize. And if we were just content with that, we wouldn't want so much. So that for me is something that I'm constantly, even as I'm starting a new year, what do I want? What do I need? How do I want what I need instead of need what I want? And that's something that's work I think we all need to do if we're in the business of growth, if we are in the business of wellness, and even the work that we're both doing. I have this tattoo on my there's a dove right here, and then there's this bird cage here. So just as an artist, I just have these like reminders each day. Like each day, I can choose something that moves me towards slavery or towards freedom. And it might sound a bit extreme, but the truth is, life is, is actually made up of a lot of small decisions that lead us to the level of freedom that we are able to live with. So it just reminded me, it's like, hey, it might seem like just a small decision, but your words have power. It might just seem like a small decision, but you know getting some nutrients in the morning might be more important than a big breakfast with things that you probably don't necessarily need. So yeah, that's I can say more about that first bar, but it really is the invitation to take a look at what we want, what we need, and how do we move to wanting what we need.
So powerful. And is it okay? Is it okay if I share some of my experiences of these lyrics as well? I mean, maybe it's not what you intended, but I think that's probably art as it evokes something inside of the experiencer. Is like sometimes I know for me, sometimes I don't know what I need. And we don't know what we need, and it's trusting that God gives us what we need versus what we want. So sometimes I want stuff and it doesn't happen, and I can either get upset about it or why didn't it happen? And I really, yeah, versus like just trusting that whatever I need, I'll receive, I'll be aware of in the moment. I think that's another really powerful, it's been a powerful experience for me for that lyric as well.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's this is the gift of writing a song, is being able to receive how it speaks to others. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, let's continue
Let's keep going.
to
Love is easier said than done, but worth your everything.
yeah, you know, oftentimes when you're writing, you can try to find a word that rhymes. I remember trying to do that on the second line, and when I wrote that one, I was like, okay, this is no longer just like trying to write a song, there's something that's happening in and through me right now. Because that's a really simple line. But the truth is, we say I love you. We say I love you to people that we do. And sometimes we say I love you to someone who we want to love. But just a quick story. I have a mentor. Her name is Sunita Mortha. And when I first met her, I admired her. She was just a shepherd and mentor to a bunch of creative artists all over the world. And you know, I found myself comfortable saying I love you whenever we would depart. And I would just say I love you more regularly amongst other people. And I don't think I ever was doing it to try to feel closer to her than I was, but I genuinely felt that. And then one time in front of everyone, she said, when I said I love you, she said, "When's my birthday?" And I was like, why does that matter? She's like, "No, really, when's my birthday?" And I didn't really get it. And she was like, "You don't know my birthday? Okay, so next time before you say I love you, know my birthday." And the point that she was making is, sometimes we say I love you, but we don't really know who we're saying that to. And a form of love is actually work, is actually getting to know someone. And so yeah, it's worth it. That process of knowing someone's joys and knowing someone's triggers and challenges, and what are the things that that you can only know by time, and consistency. It's worth it. It's worth it. That's how you arrive to loving someone, is when you can say that you know them and they know you. But I think just today we throw that phrase out so easily. We say I love mom and I also love burritos. It's like so. It's really complex. But yeah, that's where that bar came from. Initially I was trying to find something that I can build off of the first line, like I do many songs. But as soon as that song came, that line came, I was like, man, I can't wait to have a conversation like this about it, because that bar belongs to Sunita Morta, my mentor.
Wow. And she clearly cared and loved you enough to be confrontational in that way. It's like carefrontation enough to say that some people would kind of not want to maybe be carefrontational in that way. And she did, which really sounds like served you in many ways.
Yeah, carefrontational. I'm gonna have to take that.
Yeah. And bringing back Mayer, recently discovered one of his songs, which has been around for a while, but love is a verb. Like it's something that we express. It's something we bring into the world. I heard it somewhere and it stuck with me. And, without dissecting it, it was like love doesn't exist in the world unless we bring it into the world, unless we are the ones who express it and bring it into existence through us, which I thought was a cool, just a different, another way of thinking about it. So, and
Beautiful.
it's worth your everything. It's total. That's what I love about that lyric as well.
Thank you.
Let's look at the next one. Love is listening without a reply, response, or trying to solve your problem.
So this is one of those lines that come from my hopes and my longing. But yeah, just the relationship I was in at the time, I found myself uncomfortable with conflict, and anytime a conversation was unresolved. And so I didn't know I did this as often as I did, but whenever my friends or my partner at the time had anything that was challenging, I'd be quick to provide a solution. I'd be quick to provide a reason, or might even defend myself, or if you just knew this, then you wouldn't feel that way. And again, continuing to reiterate that love is listening, not to reply, but love is listening to understand. Love is listening to truly know what the other person is thinking and feeling, and then being able to together find resolution and find an answer, not having to be the sole provider of an answer. So yeah, that's where that line comes from.
And that's so transformational if people really hear that and they practice it, because we're so, like you said, we just kind of we hear to respond versus really just slowing down and receiving what someone's saying without needing to have a response. Or like you said, I think especially for men are very solution oriented, and whereas the feminine maybe is more emotional and sharing that. It's like, oh, I know your problem. You can't see it. Here it is. Pop, pop, pop. Okay, on to the next problem we can solve. And what else can we fix and solve? And being able to slow down and really hear to understand, hear to care enough about another person to just see them and witness them without having to, like you've said, cerebralize it or intellectualize it or get them to see anything. That to me, such a gift of love, just to see someone and witness them and hear them. There are not, without judgment. I mean, that's safety, right? There's not a lot of spaces that people have, even and especially sometimes in their most closest relationships. That's what we want, but sometimes those feel the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so, such a, like that alone. I mean, truly, I think if everyone in the world listened to your song, this song, Be Still, it would bring so much healing and peace to the world. So that's one of my hopes if we're going back to hopes.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and even as we process, I'm like, man, I'll need to hear that line in this song for the rest of my life. I think that's, there's certain things that are just reminders for life because we are never going to arrive or never going to perfect that. So that's what I'm learning about this song. I think sometimes, you hope that a song could bring you to a destination and then realize that actually the the song is to actually join you on the journey, because the destination isn't necessarily what the song is for.
How much of this song compared to other songs, when you, as an artist, did you feel like some songs maybe like, oh, this is mine, like I thought of this, versus like what you said, like, oh, this is really coming through me and I'm just the instrument, pun intended. Like, how much of this, or are all your songs that way?
No, I'm a very I would say collaborative artist. I'm not just a songwriter. I'm a composer, arranger, I'm multi-instrumentalist, engineer, producer. So there are so many things I enjoy, and so because of that, I have dear friends who are phenomenal writers, that I trust and that know me and I know them, and so I really enjoy that process. But it means a lot to me that for the song that happened to hit of all the work that I've created, yeah, I can say that this one's mine. As far as the arrangement, as far as the lyrics goes, the composition, and even just being in the studio and really being able to quarterback, the whole process. This one right here comes out of my own grief. This one comes out of my own failures, actually. This one comes from still trying to be still. So there's a lot of songs that I've written that I can say, yeah, that song was for that time, for that moment. But this one is timeless in that sense of like, yeah, I still need to practice stillness. I still struggle with listening sometimes. I still have a tough time being still. And so, yeah, I think when it comes down to my connection to this song, it's because I haven't been this direct about something that I really, really long and hope for.
All right, let's go. Love is hearing your pain and feeling your pain until your pain becomes ours. And you kind of mentioned that earlier, but is there anything else that you want to share about that?
Oh, for sure. There's so much about that word ours. I think growing up in America, I'll say even faith felt incredibly individualistic. We use these terms that I struggle with, like, having Jesus being your personal savior. I was like, man, that feels so contrary to the way that I think we are instructed to be. Like, to be a follower of the way is to be connected to community. To be, I would say, to be human is to be in community. And so I just, I'm fascinated with how individualistic we can make faith be about when you look at a question that the Jesus disciples ask him and say, hey, so how do we pray? He says, okay, first of all, ours, ours, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. And it just continues to use these words that's communicating like, hey, when you pray, when you follow the way, when you practice this spiritual life, you are to practice it together. And so I think, in being still, it deepens our capacity to actually be together. I find myself, unable to be present with others when I'm in a hurry and when I'm in a rush. And so again, that line, is reiterated in a verse. It's not until your pain is mine, then where I can actually provide healing. I can provide a solution. So I just think sometimes we skip that step, right? Whenever we're trying to help our friends, and we're quick to provide an answer, it's like, no, like there's a process. In case we don't know, there's a process in actually like helping one another. And if you're not willing to go through this process, then your solution is actually possibly more about you than it is about me. And so that's what I've had to learn. Like, until, even as we look at these justice issues that's been happening, I have so many, I was serving in communities but that were predominantly white, and everyone was quick to, to suggest a workshop or suggest a book club, to how to learn about, what's happening, the injustices that's happening in our country. And, for me, it's like, man, until we're willing to experience the pain that, our black brothers and sisters are experiencing, like all we have is going to be this distant, pill that's actually, or even just throw it money at the problem. It's like that's not actually providing a holistic and a sustainable solution. You actually could possibly be providing more damage by doing that. But until their injustices become our injustices, until their children become our children, until their kids get shot like it's our kids getting shot, we won't have a level of urgency necessary to actually bring about change. So I just think, if we really want to bring about change in the world, it's not just about providing healing and providing solutions. I think part of what I believe is sustainable change is to identify with the pain and the struggle that people are feeling. And when their hurts become our hurts, we're actually providing a solution that's not instant, but something that hopefully is sustainable.
Wow. Yeah, if it's happening to us, we're gonna do something about it. But when it happens to somebody else, if we're not connected to that. It just, oh, it's over there. It's happening to them. It's not
We're just
really
writing check.
not my problem.
Yeah.
Another key line I think in that one lyric is hearing your pain and feeling your pain. And so I want to take it from the other. You're talking about like feeling like I'm feeling your pain with you, to this also this idea of just feeling our feelings. I think a lot of people don't give themselves the space. They haven't been taught that it's okay to feel feelings, and instead they intellectualize. They like think about their feelings versus really allowing them. And that's something that comes forward for me in that lyric. And just curious what your experience with that is as well.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, even with my own family recently, I realized that even in my own family, there are people who haven't been actually given the space to share their feelings. And so I think it's work that, that we have to create space. We have to create spaces for transparency, for vulnerability. And that's part of the work that I do with my art. That's the work I do in churches. I work in churches and faith spaces, and I try to create these spaces where people can tell the truth. I love Brene Brown's quote that, courage is telling your whole truth with your whole heart. And I don't always feel comfortable doing that in church spaces. And so, in my own way, whenever I get an opportunity, whenever I have a mic in my hand and the people ready to listen, I'll share something gutter from time to time, and just to let everybody know, like, no, this is not an act. Like, I am just like you. If you look at, who I am when no one else is looking, I got some things that I would like to hide as well. I've got secrets. And so I just think, how do we create more spaces? And that's what I love about these different creative spaces, open mics, where people utilize poetry and songs to be able to be known, to practice talking about our feelings. And yeah, I just think that there's a lot of work that we need to do, but I'm grateful to say that we are a lot further than when we grew up. How often did you hear like vulnerable as a virtue, as a child, like I'm also learning too the difference between vulnerability and transparency, and moving towards transparency. What does it mean to be seen and not just throwing yourself out there, for the sake of other people, benefit. So, anyways, yeah, I think my hope is that we would create more spaces where people could learn how to talk about their feelings, their thoughts, and then the process be able to really know one another.
So something you said, I don't want to we could just move on, but I don't want to move on because I think it would be so important. I think it is so important for people just to hear you say a little more about the difference between vulnerability and transparency as you're experiencing it.
Yeah, I think the last 5, 10 years, my friends have a just like an ongoing joke. Whenever we're all hanging out, I just have a tendency to say, "Hey, can I be vulnerable with you?" And so it just became like a saying that I had, and I think I used that and not really knowing the way that the difference between vulnerability and transparency. And yeah, I think there's a lot of times in my life that I might have overshared. A lot of times in my life that I might have shared things that actually I that allowed me to be judged, or just things that I wasn't fully ready to allow others to speak into, or to judge even. And so, growing up as a pastor's kid and even as a minister, your life could be you could start to really believe that your life is public and for everyone to judge and aspire or not to be like. But I really appreciate, man, I just saw this, online on somebody's IG, a few weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, okay, I actually resonate with that a little bit more. But the difference between transparency and vulnerability is like, sometimes vulnerability is opening yourself up to be harmed or to be criticized or to be judged. But transparency is having a little bit more agency to say, I'm actually going to let you see from a place that is like, it's not just so you can attack me. My transparency is hopefully for your benefit. It's not just for my benefit. This is for both of our benefit. It's the ability to not just see the thing that I might be struggling with, but helping you see so much more than just that. Like how I arrived there. Like I talked about this with my wife a few weeks ago. There was something that happened, and I literally was like, "Hey, babe, can I be transparent with you?" instead of saying, can I be vulnerable? And just even that posture, like we're learning, like, okay, this is a new practice, and there's so much more than just, hey, I have something to confess. This is like, hey, actually, I want to share with you so much more than something I did, but I also want to share with you how I did it and why I did it. Like, it's might be a little bit more work, but what I found is actually a lot more understanding and a lot more compassion. And almost instantly, she was like, "Oh, babe, I'm so sorry you felt that way, that you had to do that." So I just think transparency is, I think my movement towards 2025, so much more than just creating spaces for people to be vulnerable. It's like, no, we're not just here to be vulnerable, but we're here to actually understand each other, not just through our grief and our pain, but also understanding, like, okay, what are some of the reasons, what are some of the stories that lead us to these different decisions. So yeah, I'm still learning about transparency and the difference of that, but thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna borrow that on and just experiment with it. I'm excited for that. So I appreciate you sharing a little more.
So,
Love is more than a song you sing when your heart is full of hallelujah. Behind that lyric.
oh man, I think, again, we can be very fair weather about when we choose to express appreciation, affirmation, and love. And something that I'm practicing right now with Ellie is learning that it's in the toughest times. It's in the toughest times when we're annoyed, frustrated, and maybe even angry at each other. Like, that is actually the most important time for us to express our love for one another. And yeah, we're still working on that. But that's something that we aspire to. And especially as someone who is I'm a psalmist. I sing praises and laments to God every Sunday, and I invite other people to join me. And so much of my upbringing was really heavy on, songs that are full of gratitude and praise, and songs with major chords that had a little bit more of a up feel to it, songs you can dance to. But I think so much of what I longed for in these faith spaces is the broken hallelujahs, songs where you can say, God, where are you? Or God, I don't even believe in you right now. Or God, I think you're horrible. I think those are things that, one, God can handle. But two, I think it's important, if your child never looked to you and said, Dad, I think this is horrible. I think you're horrible. Hey, Dad, I don't understand you. What kind of relationship would you have if your child wasn't honest to you about the times where life didn't make sense? The times when you were challenging your child, the times when your child just felt far from you, right? So I think love is all of it. It's not just our joy, but it's the ability to sit with defeat, to sit with pain, to sit with disappointment. Those are the times where I can honestly say I felt most loved. Like, I'm moved to emotion because I'm just thinking about my greatest understanding of love is actually in those moments where I didn't want to wake up the next morning. And my brother would call and just say, don't forget about mom. Don't forget about mom. And don't forget about your nieces. And don't forget about all of us who would miss you so much if you were not here tomorrow. And yeah, those are the moments in my life where love was real, because no one else was singing around me. It was just me. And oftentimes we can get confused in thinking that love is the triumph of life, and the times that you expect it to, but it's usually when you don't expect it.
The broken hallelujah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that part of your journey.
Yeah, I
I
think.
say it's so again, the power is in the honesty. Power is in the honesty, man. It's in just how the realness of your journey and of the human journey. I think that's so needed in our world today, more of these kinds of conversations. Um, yeah, so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love is showing up after a dark night of the soul does something to ya.
Yeah, again, continuing to reiterate, like this verse, I'm going there, I'm going there. There are moments where I shouldn't have stood up and led people into worship on Sunday. There are many, many Sundays where I did not feel worthy to stand before God and stand before others and to sing my gratitude and sing I need help. But I've learned, I mean, and not just in church and not just with worship, I think it's what I tell members of my own, music collectives, worship collectives, sometimes the most important days, for you to show up is actually on a day that you don't feel like it. There are moments when we show up because we're here to serve and we're here to be a bridge. And then there's a lot of times if we're doing it right that we're showing up because we need a little bit of help. And so, I just with this song, I really want to emphasize the importance of not just being still, but showing up with all that you are, all that you're not. Your presence makes our community more complete. And so for me, again, that line is just coming from a place of like knowing the dangers sometimes of isolation and the echo chamber, of constantly like speaking negative thoughts and forgetting that actually like there's more than what's happening right here, and I need someone to remind me that I'm safe. I need someone to remind me that I'm loved because I don't love myself right now. I need somebody to remind me that I do belong, that I am recognized, that I am valued. I need someone to remind. I need someone other than myself to remind me that, with a hug, with eye contact, with a simple smile, with just recognition, acknowledgement, and I need somebody to remind me that they're not going to abandon me. And again, to be human is to be together, and that's what that invitation is show up, continue to show up, not just for your sake, but for others.
Man, it makes me think about a quote, be kind for everyone you know is fighting a hard battle. And we don't see that on the outside. People don't walk around saying, "Oh my God, I'm really depressed about this," or this we don't see, or this person has cancer in my life. I'm struggling with this. Like we don't see that. And so the power, what you're saying, if we show up, one, if we're in that space, if we show up, we can actually receive that medicine in a way that maybe we don't expect. Maybe it comes in somebody holding the door open for us, or a smile, or a lyric we hear when we're driving to work and we don't want to go to work at all. The power of showing up and the power of just those loving, caring, kind, small gestures can change someone's whole day and in turn their whole life. So, yes, the reminder is so powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Last one of these loves. Love is trusting that I'm enough to become what love demands.
Yeah, again, so much of my journey, my faith journey, has been deeply impacted on the invitation, the commandment to love God with my thinking, my feelings, and then my actions, and then to love my neighbor as myself. There's three parts there, but one that I think no one ever talks about is how loving Creator, loving Spirit, loving myself, and loving others actually means nothing if I don't first receive love. And my ability to love my neighbor actually starts there. I can only give what I got. And so for me, I've had to do quite a bit of deconstructing with my faith and reconstructing and realizing how much agency that I actually have. for myself. I can say no. I can actually have more than I realize to love. I have everything that I need. I have everything that I need right now. When I have God and I'm receiving the nutrients that comes from Creator God every day, love, peace, joy, like all these things enable me to be able to make eye contact with the stranger, to be able to be patient and kind with my own family, with my own friends, with my own love, Elmira. I have everything that I already need. And sometimes I think we start ourselves in the red. I can only give once I get this. And I just think that there's a possibility we've got that backwards. It's like actually, like you woke up this morning, we have everything that we need already. The fact that we woke up, just another opportunity to live, another opportunity to get it wrong so we can get it right. I think we underestimate that we are complete already. I think for me, that line, there's a lot of deconstructing that I had to do with just really feeling like I was born a sinner and I was born in the red and I was born without. And I've had just to say, actually, like, I don't know who started that, but no, I actually believe I'm born a blessing. I'm born a blessing and I'm born a child of God. I'm born a most high. I belong to most high. And I just think when I get to father my son soon and very soon, part of what I hope to do is to really reiterate, like, you are a blessing, you are a gift, you have superpowers. And these superpowers is patience and kindness, and you can heal the world. You can actually like resurrect someone's day, by simply like being kind to them and offering people an encouraging word. You can heal someone simply by listening to them, son. Like really beginning, setting a child up, for this. I don't even want to say like just out of the red. I just think there's so many ways in which my faith has blessed me, but some of the ways that I had to deconstruct this idea that we started off in red, and I'm just like, these are some of the things that that line comes from. That line comes from like you actually have more than you realized, and you are more than what you've been told, even by well-meaning siblings. You actually have everything you need right now to love. You don't have to wait for someone else to be kind. You don't have to wait for somebody to come into your heart to be kind. Actually, when you were born, you were created by Creator God, and you have everything that you need right now, whether you said a prayer or not. So again, from a spirit of inclusivity, from a spirit of invitation, that bar, as simple as it is, it's saying that we all have no excuses. We all have all that we need to provide what love demands. I'm gonna stop preaching.
No, keep keep going. I mean, what a gift it is to your son that you're his father. And I just think about a world where children grow up with this level of truth, because it is truth. This level of truth. You're not lacking anything. Like you were born whole and you're here to express the fullness of that wholeness, that life force that wants to express uniquely through you. And everyone's got their own flavor. Like the ice cream. If you like ice cream, all the flavors are good, but they're all different. And so what a gift that is to him and everyone to receive that message. So yeah, wow, change the world right there, because so many people come from that misunderstanding of inherent lack, and then they try and find what's going to fill that, and they could spend their whole life trying. It's in the girlfriend, it's in the partner, it's in the money, it's in the status, it's in the house, it's in whatever.
Yeah,
And at some point, people realize it's not in any of those things. Holy smokes, it's been here the whole time. That awakening,
yeah.
that's powerful. Before, gotta ask this, because I think when a lot of people initially think love, they think like the soft love, caring, kindness, but like love being demanding. Like that word demand stands out. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
I think it's more of a, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. Like it's everyone can do it, but it's not easy. It's actually a demand. It's not an option. Like there's certain things in life that, you can live or live without. But if you want love, there's certain very, very clear things that love is. And I've tried to be very, very inclusive in the way that I talked about it. I tried to be very, conversational and maybe even confessional with the way that I've talked about what love is, because those are many things that I'm not, but I'm working towards. But I try to end with the exclamation mark with that word, because it's just like, hey, there's when I say everything, it demands everything. It's worth everything. I believe love and faith, there's certain things in life that it doesn't work unless you give your everything. I heard like if your faith doesn't cost you much, it's probably worth the same. And I would say no, if it doesn't cost you everything, it's not faith. And if your love, this is the problem with it, is I think sometimes we can treat love that way. It's like a little, a little here, a little. It's like no, 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 no. Love is it's a, it's a. I, don't- I'm constantly having to um, deconstruct like certain ways that I talk about this, but I really do think it's a kind of love that's willing to lay your life down. You know, dying to yourself is one way that we say it, but I think when you're really trying to love, you dedicate your life to it. Like this is not something that, okay, I'll do a little here, I do a little there. I just think love is something that really demands the parts of us that maybe we're unwilling to work on. And all the things that I've mentioned, those are actually things that I'm still working on, and I will be working on for the rest of my life. Being still is something that I really, I no longer have the goal of being still. My goal is to be more still every day, to be more still. And that's advice that I gotten from dear friends of mine. It's like rather than saying, hey, just making a I'm gonna stop or I'm gonna quit this, is like, what if we just said I'm gonna do less of that, or I'm gonna do more of that every day. So again, you know, demands is just, or the reminder that we can't we can't redefine what love is, no matter how many times we're trying to make sense of it. Ultimately, what love means is it's sacrificing, and it's willing to give our life for our love.
So true and so powerful, makes me think about that love's inconvenient in a lot of ways. It's very inconvenient to the ego, very inconvenient to our sense of wanting to be right, very inconvenient to the part of us that wants to make a them and an us. So so it's rational to judge because of this or that. It's so inconvenient in our lives, and it does destroy our life, but in like it purifies it. It's like, I don't know, fire just purifies it. And so it is total. One of the, it makes me think about something I say sometimes in class, Revelation Breathwork class, is like, you can't surrender 99%.
That's
You
right.
you can't save the 1% sliver for yourself just in case it doesn't work out, or just in case you don't like what life brings you. It's like it's total. And so just love what you shared there, because it's been my experience, and I think it's true. So
Yeah, thank you.
so good. For in the song "Be Still," most of the song feels like the songwriter, Isaiah, are speaking to us. But then when you get to the bridge, you start saying you. So it's like, oh, I'm telling this to myself, and then all of a sudden you're speaking to us. And the way that I experience it is it sounds like God speaking to me. You are safe here and now. You belong here and now. You are loved here and now. And I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to be right by your side. So can you share a little bit about just that bridge? And you've shared already some of those concepts, but would love to hear a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I can say about it is try it next time. Try it next time to someone who's clearly triggered. Um, Try it with yourself. It's just lyrics in a song. It means absolutely nothing until you're in that place. And again, this was something that my therapist didn't just say to me, but was actually like walking me through what that meant, you know? And so I say words mean nothing, lyrics mean nothing if you're not willing to actually practice that. So the ability when someone is clearly in need to to help them um, come back to the present. That's work I get to do. That's work that I'm gonna get to do with Lyric High, with my son. That's work that I need for people. Just say, hey, whatever you're feeling, hey, I just want to let you know, like you're good. We're good right now. Like please come back because I think it's a real thing that we didn't always know what was happening when people are triggered. They're experiencing pain that they never healed from a long time ago. So I'm not a therapist, um, but man, that office, there's something supernatural that happened. You know, their ability to bring me back simply by that drill, 5 4 3 2 1, was I just think of people who never had that tool, and maybe if they did, it would have saved them from whatever they did next. Um, you know, the work of belonging. I mean, that's why I do what I do today. And I think if you're a human being, you know, one of the most important things you can do once a week is have a group of people that you can belong to. I mean, it could be your chess club, it could be your yoga class, it could be church, it could be whatever, you know. I think it's so crucial for us as human beings to have other human beings that we can belong to that can remind us, you know, that hey, there's things to be grateful for, and at the same time, you know, you're not the only one that's going through shit right now. You know, we all have stuff that you know we're battling through, and something about that, you know, is incredibly grounding. Just remembering, like, oh, okay, that's right. I'm not the only one that's feeling this way. It doesn't make sense, but when you remember that you're not alone, it sometimes gives you enough gas to be able to wake up and try again. You know, you are loved. You know, how do we express that? We just talked about a bunch of different ways that love is, and again, the ability to not just say that, but to truly exercise that with somebody, you know, to truly listen to somebody. You are loved, you know, that means absolutely nothing if you don't know how to listen. That you are loved, that doesn't means nothing if you don't know how to really listen to understand and to exchange emotion for emotion. You know, your hurt now is my hurt. I feel you, you know. There's like these movements, you know. I see you, I acknowledge you, I hear you, I understand you, and then some that, man, my cousins, and they're like from the hood. I heard them saying a long time ago that I'm like, man, like that has so much more meaning now. But they would say, I feel you, dog. Like these are just things that I've heard from my community growing up that have so much more meaning because it's not just like I see you, I acknowledge you, or I hear you, I understand where you're coming from. Like a lot of times we think the solution is understanding people, but it's like no, like the compassion is a lot harder. Like for us to truly have compassion for one another, we have to feel each other, you know, and that's something that only comes from proximity. And then the ability to say, now that I feel you, now that I've experienced your pain, I'm not gonna run. Like it's 4 bars, but I promise you, like try practicing that. it's going to move anyone who's in your path a little bit closer, not just to you. It's going to move them closer to themselves. Hopefully, it moves them closer to Creator, to Spirit. And, those there's a reason why that's in the bridge. And there's a reason why I'm saying you, because yes, I believe that will be God speaking over my life every time I feel far. God saying, hey, like, you're safe. I got you. You belong to me. No matter what these people say, like, I will never leave you, never forsake you. There's nothing that can separate you from my love. Even though your whole life you've been told that if you just be nice, if you just be a good boy, if you just go to church, if you just say your prayers, if you just stay silent, then I will love you. But you are safe and you belong to me. No one can separate you from my love. And you are loved, and I will never leave you, never forsake you. Like, if you really, really take those words seriously and you live like it, it'll transform your life. I believe that. I believe that. No matter what you believe with, your relationship with your higher power, I just think that, when you can receive that love, you'll be able to share that with somebody else. You can look at a stranger and say, "Hey, you're safe. Whatever you're feeling right now, I'm you're safe because I'm here with you. You're safe. I got you. You belong. Right now, we belong to each other in this very moment. You are loved. I see you. I recognize you, and I'm feeling and I'm experiencing your hurt right now in this moment. And I'm not leaving you. This moment is ours forever." So that's a prayer, and hopefully, so much more than anything we can ever attain on our own, is recognizing that the gift of being still, is something that draws us closer to God and closer to one another, and closer to ourselves.
Yes, amen. Ha- Isaiah, how do you define healing?
Oh man, I mean, healing very simply is becoming well again, becoming well, holistically. I think healing is I love the word shalom, which was a greeting, that Jesus people would exchange to one another, that as another form of peace be with you. But I think the way I've heard it talked about, that was so fascinating, is it's the way that God's shalom is the way that God intended things to be. So the way that things were intended to be, and I believe that yes, we might inherit and grow up with certain things that we did not, that wasn't our fault, or that wasn't the intended way that we were supposed to be born with. But I do believe that healing is something that happens in the context of community. It happens by being still. It happens, taking one step at a time towards wellness, towards growth. Healing doesn't is not always easy. I think it's actually incredibly challenging, but it's worth it. The journey towards wellness, begins with self-awareness, and being able to really name and identify what's not well. So, yeah, it's a journey that I think, we're all in the path of, and my hope is that through the practice of being still, that can be a way to kind of reflect on the parts of us that need healing, and then being able to take the slow but sure journey towards becoming well again, becoming whole again.
It makes me think of a definition from a book, The Way of Mastery, that healing is remembering who you already are. And that speaks to the wholeness. If we're already whole, it's not like, we're remembering who we already are. It's really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
So there's three things that I've heard you say that I would love for you to say a little more on because they're like nuggets of wisdom that are so powerful. One was, and maybe this is in relationship to your church, that we've elevated worship to something cerebral versus in the body. And so, how does music and your music move people into maybe something less cerebral and bring them more into the body?
Yeah, thank you. Again, in a lot of the spaces that I have found myself in, there is a high emphasis on staying up in where it's safe. That's just where most people are comfortable at. But growing up, in my dad's Tongan church, there was a lot of movement. There was a lot of dancing. We absolutely engaged our whole body when we gave thanks. It wasn't just something that we. And again, I try to be mindful of just knowing that each culture has a way that's more natural of them being able to show appreciation and worship. But it's fascinating that when you go to other parts of the world, there's a lot more like physical embodiment in that expression. And so I just think for me, the way in which I practice worship is bringing these songs that come from other parts of the world. These songs that actually you can't just sing just standing there looking at a hymnal. Some of the songs that we sing, come from other parts of the world that it's a simple line, Webare Yesu, Webare Yesu, Webare Yesu Anje, Webare Kunduhuda. Even the melody, even the rhythm, even the lyrics, they're so simple that's like it's not about filling your mind with theology or it's actually a simple phrase that you meditate on and then you sing enough times to where you're no longer thinking about it. It moves from your head to your heart, to your heart, to your bodies. And it's a lot of these songs that come from, again, the global South. So for me, the spaces that I work in, I bring what I like to call glocal music, which is both global and local, because they're not just from our neighbors over there. They're actually our next door neighbors, at least here in California. And yeah, I really believe that these songs that come from other parts of the world have a lot to teach us Americans, Westerners, how to communicate with our bodies. One of my favorite songs that we do is actually a song that my one of my best friends, Jaron, taught me. It's actually a song in American Sign Language, and it's like one of the most powerful experiences. I'm in Portola Valley, so yeah, predominantly older and white community that's very, very traditional. And so, me bringing a song that one is not in the hymnal, two is not even sung, but a song that we actually signed. This is the sign for Hallelujah. This is a sign for thank you, Jesus. And then I teach him, Lord, we love you, and I teach these phrases and it's clearly uncomfortable. It's clearly new, but it's so fascinating because the ones who have no problem are the children. And something about says something so neutralizing, like when there's children in the room, all of a sudden the adults don't mind learning as much. But when there's no children in the room, it's like, well, why do we have to do this? There's like nobody deaf in our community. When there's children in there, there's an openness to learning, there's an openness to expression. And it's wild that, when you're children, that's not an issue. But the older you get too cool for school. You want to be able to like be a little bit more composed, and I don't want to show emotion with my body. I mean, it's one of the most powerful songs because when you see a group of people expressing gratitude in a language that's not their own, it doesn't just connect us with God, it connects us with our neighbor who is not in the room. And that's a really transformational experience. So again, there's these songs, there's even a song that was really popular over the last few years, a song where the chorus, so I throw up my hands, and I forget the lyric, but it's basically inviting people to like thank God. But I always have people saying, "Hey, like when you told people to like lift their hands, I have a lot of triggers. I have a lot of PTSD, from being in churches where everyone was like doing this." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, me too, me too." I think that's really valid, and at the same time, I think it's something for us to really think about, because when our kids are happy, they do this. Our kids are happy, or when they need help, or when they need someone to lift them up, they do this, and I think these are expressions that are important for us to have as human beings as well, as adults as well. It's like we have forgotten how to lift our hands and just saying, God, help. I need, if you're out there, please grab my hand because I'm struggling right now. There's something really powerful about not just thinking that, there's something really powerful. I mean, I dare you, the next time you're struggling with whatever, just go outside. I do this. I just go outside, I just put my hand up. It's like, God, if you're there, just grab my hand. Like the physical expression. And it's like, but if you go to a black church, if you go to my daddy's church, whenever somebody connects or resonates, they'll just do this. They're like, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God." That's what I grew up in. Your body's connected to your words. We don't have a problem when the Niners score. We don't have a problem when Curry busts a three. We're like, yes. It's like I just want to say, like, okay, that's for your sports team. Like, watch me go. When the Warriors are in the playoffs, you just and that's the thing. I was like, if you do this for the Warriors, how about for someone who is responsible for your life? And even though, sure, you can't see them, I can't see the air outside, but I can see the effects of the trees. The trees are moving right now. In the same way, it's like really connecting our bodies with our expression. So I just think, when I'm a part of these communities that invite me, and I'm so grateful for these different communities, specifically the communities I serve at right now in Oakland, New City Church, and also Valley Pres, Portola Valley. I'm in two different spaces where they've invited me to curate these worship experiences where I invite the whole self, not just their minds, not just their soul and their feelings and their spirit, but also our bodies. And so a lot of the music feels like the music that I create with Minor Islands, is funk, is reggae, is gospel. And then we do some Taizé songs that are very meditative, and just like breathe exercises. We do all of it. There's not one style that we do. Like we really, really believe that God created us differently on purpose. So that's my 2 cents on body movement.
Oh my gosh, I say, can I read you something real quick when you were talking about that? It's a poem that I think I would only read it because I think you would really appreciate it and it would benefit anyone who's listening. It's one of my favorites. I'll read it to you right here. I pulled it up. All right. The worst thing we ever did was put God and the sky out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in the universe available to every soul in every breath. By Chelan Harkin.
Wow. Yes.
Yes.
Send that to me, please.
I
Please.
was going to email it to you after, but I was like, if we can read it, let's read it on here, man. It's so good.
Oh, I'm gonna have to bust that out on a Sunday morning.
Please, please.
Yeah, beautiful.
When your story meets when your story meets my story, we find God's story.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's what I've been sharing this whole time. There's a deep, deep call to community in in the scriptures, and I'm just there. I think oftentimes our faith journey can be isolated. It's the world around us is telling us that we don't need anyone else. You have everything on your phone. Still to this day, I when I walk into a grocery store, I'm I'm wired and I prefer just to go find someone that works there and say, "Hey, can you tell me where the chips are at? What aisle the chips are at?" Just starting a conversation. You never know what they could be going through, but it's just like a thing that I just started doing years ago, and just being able to, how's your day going? To like, you'll be surprised how many people ask, someone who's working in the service industry, like, how's your day going? Or even really being able to say, thank you so much. You were so kind. Like it seems like a small thing, but for me, my faith has become so much stronger and so much more fulfilling when I allow myself to receive and learn from strangers, from friends. Other people's stories of faith actually enhances my faith. And so I just think again the invitation, to recognize that God is in both of our stories, especially as we're about to go into these next 4 years. I've seen this movie already, but I really hope that we can respond a little differently as a country to recognizing, like, and this is something that I've prayed for and really looking forward to the next 4 years to trying differently, for people politically who may be on the opposite end, what would it look like for me to be able to find the sacredness in them rather than being so quick to like, you're evil, you're wrong, you're on the wrong side of history, that did that already, and now that it's a little closer to home, I realize, okay, maybe I have some work that God needs to do, and unfortunately, besides the scripture and the commandment being to love your neighbor as yourself, for those who it wasn't clear for, Jesus says, all right, for the people in the back who think I'm not talking to you, let me just make it clear. Love your enemies. Love your enemies. And we all know that enemies don't have to be some person in another country who's trying to take over our home. It sometimes be somebody that's sitting right next to us in the church. It could be a family member. Sometimes it could be a friend who we really feel misunderstood by, or someone who's clearly hurting us that we didn't expect. So I just think I love even just Brene Brown, her talking about the story that I'm telling myself right now. It's just really, it's such an open way to like to be wrong. I'm learning that there's a lot of gifts in being wrong, and I'm learning to appreciate being wrong because, man, if I was right, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'd be so much further than to who I think I was created to be than who I am today. But that's something that my partner and I practice a lot, especially as we're getting ready to have a really important conversation with my siblings. It's like, leave room to be wrong. Leave room to be wrong. There's my story, your story, and the truth. And I really believe that, when our stories meet, that's more important than who's right. When we are really trying to practice that commandment of loving God and loving our neighbor as ourselves, like it's when we are finally understand, not agreeing, but when we can see each other, when we can recognize the belovedness in our neighbor, and those who we adamantly disagree with, when we can really be able to say, that person's still a child of God. And despite how I feel, I must honor and I must dignify them as a child of God. So again, when my story meets your story, it's the openness of knowing that God belongs to both of our stories.
Isaiah, gosh, man, thank you so much. One more, if we can go one more, this is the last one. You've described security as something that can keep us from our full potential. That is so powerful because so many people are searching for security. Can you say more about that? Security that is something that can keep us from our full potential.
Yeah, I'll say as a creative, again, as someone who practices spirituality in the way of Jesus, I'm learning that it's very American to be stable and to be secure. That has become our main goal. And so what that has done for me is it's kept me from growing. It's kept me from actually exploring. It's kept me from learning and being willing to being wrong. Being secure is another form of trying to be right. You trying to be in control even. And yeah, I'm just learning that life is actually about being free. It's not about being secure. It doesn't matter how much money you got. It doesn't matter, where you were born or how old you are. We're all going to throw that party one day where everyone's going to show up and talk about whether you are secure or whether you are free. So again, I just think our lives would look drastically different if we truly lived freely. Again, without fear, free to love, free to serve, free to be who we were created to be. But I notice, especially during the pandemic, it really revealed itself how so much of our focus was on being secure and being safe. And I just don't believe that that's what we were intent. That's why we were created. It's just to be safe and to be secure. I think that's operating out of fear. And yeah, my greatest work is when I create out of freedom, is when I'm telling the truth, the whole truth, authentically and transparent about who, what I believe, and who I believe it with. So yeah, I mean, I can go on, but ultimately, it's a really simple way of identifying if my motivation is out of fear or out of love.
Mic drop. Mic drop. So what upcoming projects do you have? Anything coming in? Are you creating? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I think honestly, I have a lot of projects that I'm working on right now, but I think right now, ultimately, yeah, if you want to connect with me, a lot of my work actually comes from people checking out my Instagram. So it's simply Aisea Taimani, and then yeah, these next few months is going to be a focus on the greatest project that I've ever been a part of, and that's Project Dad 2025. So that's where my songs will belong. I'll be preparing for that, and then yeah, this summer I'll be releasing a lot of work that I've been working on over the past few years. But ultimately, yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm pretty, the work I do allows me to be able to connect with people over Zoom, over coffee, if people are in the Bay Area. And these are the kind of conversations I love having. So yeah, ultimately so much more than people checking out my work. Yeah, it's all online. My band is called Minor Islands. So if you want to find my work, it's Aisea Taimani at plus Aisea Taimani plus Minor Islands, and that the name of my band comes from the mystic Thomas Merton. No one is an island, but a part of the whole. So just again, another invitation to community. Like we are the company that we keep, and I am because we are Ubuntu. So yeah, please connect with me, reach out if anyone wants to continue the dialogue. But yeah, Jason, I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. I'm grateful for the beginning of this friendship and to many more conversations. And again, if you're ever in the Bay Area, would love to break bread with you and just continue on this friendship.
Absolutely. Again, Isaiah, thank you so much. Be still. Your whole catalog, check out everything. It really just comes straight from your heart. So I want to thank you again and can't wait till we cross paths again.
All right,
Thank you,
Jason.
dude.